My name is Pierre. I used to teach in a Brussels high school. It was a tough school. My students often had tumultuous upbringings. They were a little noisy, but just like all young people, they had dreams. Hanan wanted to be a doctor. Dries already saw himself playing for Barca. And Sadia and Emir were living out their happily ever after. I tried to nurture their teenage dreams. It was good. Every day, I crossed the canal that separated our neighborhoods. It felt like crossing between two worlds. And that didn't sit right with me. I watched as a gulf of prejudice and intolerance emerged between the communities. We were living on our own little islands that didn't mix, didn't talk, and didn't know each other. This made me feel bad. And then one day, I became scared. On March 22nd, 2016, I happened to be passing by the Maalbeek metro station at 9:28 a.m. I helped Sophie, a young woman who had been seriously burned during the terrorist attack. I only spent a few minutes with her, comforting her. She was around my daughter's age. That day, I saw what hate for others was capable of. And since that day, I've been scared. Scared for my children, for my students, scared that our world is becoming more isolated, scared of what I see on TV, and of the speeches that blame others for our own issues. How did we get here?
Comment sommes-nous arrivés là?
How did we get here? I think that in situations where the other becomes this fixation, where we gradually view this other as threatening or different from us, and we then exclude them, these situations always emerge within a particular context. And this particular context would be disintegrated societies, hyper-fragmented societies, atomized, pulverized societies. The thing that divides people becomes more important than what could bring them together. One of the common values we used to uphold in our societies was that together, collectively, we could make it. From generation to generation, we made things better. Now this isn't what prevails. We now get the feeling that things are getting worse. First and foremost, people feel like they're victims. And so they develop fears, different kinds of fears. The fear of losing social and cultural standing, loss of identity, and so on. And so, within this context, there are those who I call political entrepreneurs, who will develop ideologies which seek to create narrow identities. At the center of these ideologies, there is the issue of the scapegoat. These ideologies need, at all costs, to develop and designate successive scapegoats. This is what drives people to rally behind these figures, so they can get into power or maintain their power. These scapegoats are Muslims, Jews, homosexuals, job seekers, the unemployed. It's the other. It's refugees. It's immigrants in general. And with these ideologies, which aim to create narrow identities by labeling scapegoats, which is extremely dangerous, we start using simplistic language such as the Muslims, the Jews. We reduce their identity to just a single aspect of their personality, their identity. We see in a group of individuals merely the fact that they're Muslim, that they're Jewish, or a refugee. And as Amin Malouf has taught us, when we think about, rationalize and perceive others through the lens of a single identity, this inevitably leads, as always, to killer identities. And so these societies or societal contexts serve only to unleash the rise of violence.
All it takes is just a few clicks online to see how violence generated by fear of otherness is exploding. Without always fully understanding why, we can see identitarian wars breaking out across the globe. Xenophobic and populist parties are winning elections by stigmatizing other people's differences and their religious affiliations. One by one, democratic countries are falling under the control of policies closed off to otherness. In fact, I am afraid of a world that is afraid. How do we get out of this situation?
We must create a counter-discourse. And our big challenge is to attempt to bring about an alternative within this context, to form a resistance, to imagine micro-societies in which individuals of different origins and religions try, in spite of everything, to build something new, and who experiment with living together with people of different beliefs, from different religious systems. I believe that it's essential for us to highlight these gestures, so we can emphasize the fact that nowadays we must keep faith in finding ways to build something new, an open society.
Because we need to keep hope alive, I went to meet the men and women who are fighting against isolationism and rejection of others. I wanted to understand how these true resistance fighters are shaking up their assumptions and their faith to rebuild bridges between divided communities. Through listening to their stories, I wanted to discover how they set up projects that go beyond living together to coming together. First cause of a withdrawing world is victimization. I had to find out how the victims of past conflicts could nevertheless build innovative reconciliation projects. And so I told myself that I should start where coming together seemed to be the most complicated, in a country that had experienced an identitarian conflict, Bosnia. Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia, also known as Western Jerusalem, paid a heavy price for the conflict that tore apart the former Yugoslavia. That's why this symbolic city was going to be the starting point of my journey. I remember I was 30 years old when the war broke out in Bosnia, country so close to mine. From my living room, I witnessed the whole story unravel. We watched with concern as Orthodox Serbs, Catholic Croats, and Muslim Bosnians confronted each other in this small territory with a barbarity that we thought we would never again see in Europe. It is within this context that I met my first resistance fighter, Nujema.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar.
I don't have any photos of my father. We've been told different stories about how he died. One day, my manager at work told me the story he had heard, that they put him inside a truck tire and burned him alive. Honestly, I think that I don't think I'm trying to get revenge for the past. But I think all those events have made me a stronger person. They've made me the person I am today. And I'm sure that without these events, I would be a very, very different person. I think I've lost out on many years because of the war, and from being a refugee, and by living the life that other people wanted me to live. Then one day, I decided to live out every possible moment in the way that seemed right to me.
Well, for Nujema's case, I think her persistence comes from, I mean, probably genetics as well. I'm sure her father had some of this, and I think these kind of people are just born like this, they're just born to be leaders, to move people, and, it's possible.
When I started working at Al Jazeera, I gained 10 kilos in just 1 year. A friend told me about a running club and said that I should sign up. I suffered for 3 months, but I had a goal. That's just how I am. I set myself a goal and I work to accomplish it. It's the only way I know. My goal was to run a half marathon in 6 months. I enjoyed seeing so many people coming together and being happy. Putting in all that energy gave me even more energy. So then, I started inviting people to come and train with me, to socialize with each other, and that's how it all began.
This story begins in 2017 and is unique because despite tensions still existing between the communities, Nujema decided to create a running club where Serbs, Croats and Bosnians could come together in the heart of Sarajevo. The group calls itself Tito, which is the Bosnian abbreviation for Terčanito, all running and lots of other things. I quickly discovered that the running was just a pretext for a bigger goal, to meet and change one's views of others, to simply break down barriers and rebuild bridges between the different communities.
Actually, sport is the best way to meet other people. In this group, you forget about Bosnia, you forget about war, you forget about everything that happened. I'm a Muslim, he is not, but you can see that in our group. We are all the same. We dare to dream that one day it will not be just in our group, it will be all over Bosnia and Herzegovina. And my opinion is that Nujema is, actually I will say again, Nujema is guilty for that.
I was afraid of Muslim people. I will have to admit that. I was afraid of people with long beards. I was afraid of women wearing hijab, especially women wearing niqab. And then all of a sudden there is one woman, she's a lot shorter, a lot thinner than me, and she's changing my entire world. She's changing my perceptions. She's changing everything that I know, everything that I am. I had my animosity towards people. I had my doubts, I had my suspicions, and in 10 days, all of that, it was gone.
I was wondering why this was so important to us. And I realized that we didn't have any working community here. We all needed, from a cultural viewpoint, something that brought us together as normal people, without obstacles or barriers separating us. Today I can safely say that I've fulfilled one of my dreams. I got to organize a large-scale international triathlon in my country. In this life, opportunities present themselves, or you create them unconsciously. But I like to play the role of a pioneer. I want to open up a path and push forward.
I was fat, I was lazy, I drink a lot, I smoke a lot. I was on the verge of suicide. If you want to do something, you have to change your opinion of people. And I changed my opinion of people, especially those people. I was afraid. You have to beat your inner demons, things that hold you back, things that keep your mind closed. Yes, everybody can change. When I think about Nujema as a leader, be a leader and to move people to be better. That is her perfect leadership skills.
I inherited my father's character. He also enjoyed sport and bringing people together. He was always a community leader, and people recognized these same qualities in me.
Nujema started with her personal goals, but now she has moved hundreds of people to do the same. I mean, now people look up to her, really, and they look up to her, they want to be like her. They want to open up, they want to do things like she did, you know, they want to get out of their little tiny micro world, you know, and then go out and see whatever, you know. There's so many things in the world we can do.
I spent many hours talking with Nujema. Her life's philosophy is so clear. Don't look back. Don't remain a victim of your past. Instead, take strength from it, bounce back, and take action. Opening up to others through sport in order to break down prejudices is Nujema's solution to no longer being afraid of others. As an active member of many Bosnian associations, Nujema also tells me to look into a reconciliation project led by Camille, a survivor of the Serbian concentration camps. During the few days we spent together, Camille told me about his war experiences with immense humility. In May 1992, at the age of 24, he and his brother were locked up together with thousands of other Muslims in the Omarska concentration camp, run by the Serbian army. Some of the militiamen were neighbors from his village, and even his teachers.
So we are inside the White House. Spring, summer 1992, this formed part of the Omarska concentration camp. No one actually wanted to end up inside this building. So somebody who survived this place said later that the guards would strip naked to their waist, and they would use their truncheons, they would use different implements like electric cables, and they would beat everyone mercilessly. And there was a window facing the ground, and they opened it. They wanted us to hear what was happening inside the room. We heard some screams and, you know, tables and chairs flying across the room because of the violence. But there was no way to hide. So it was terrible. The bodies of those killed either inside this building or in other parts of the camp would normally be dumped behind this window, behind the building. It was very, to put it mildly, it was very uncomfortable to see your friends and neighbors of yesterday suddenly threatening you. When I was old enough, I realized that my attackers saw me as a Muslim, as their enemy. So when I was released, when I arrived in England, I was angry. I hated them, and I say I hated them with passion. I imagined, killing them, and you may say, well, imagining killing someone and being able to do it are two different things. But I was so dehumanized that I probably would be able to kill and feel absolutely nothing. At this point in time, I was a victim. Then I asked for help. I suddenly realized I need help. And I was very lucky that there was a psychoanalyst from Russia, and she helped me on my journey from that victim status to becoming a survivor. And as a survivor, I asked myself a number of questions. How come that my teacher, who was such a nice guy in school, could participate in something like that? As Mandela said, you don't build peace with friends, you build peace with your enemies. So eventually, when it became possible, Camille, the survivor, met, among other people, that teacher.
Professor Zorich?
Don't touch me.
Don't you remember me?
No, both of us have changed.
No, you're right. You interrogated me.
Really? Was it horrible?
I wanted to tell you that you were one of my...
Bad memories.
No, you were a really good-looking guy. All the girls had a crush on you. You had a good sense of humor. That's why I had fond memories of you.
Are you joking?
No, I'm not joking. Does this make you feel uncomfortable?
Of course. Back then I wanted to help, but I wasn't able to because of the circumstances, because of my community. You know, I wasn't meant to be there. I found myself in the wrong place at the wrong time.
So I kept thinking about forgiveness, but when we think of forgiveness is how do you forgive someone who will not even acknowledge that what they did was wrong? I don't judge them. I know what they did, but I don't want to play their judge or their prosecutor. So I was very lucky that in early 2008 I finally said, I forgive you. I just said it. I didn't really think what I was about to say. I just said it. And I felt a huge sense of relief. You know, life is too short. You know, you need to let go of things. It was very painful, but I want to live my life to the full. And I want to be a useful human being, you know, in this society. I want to be an active citizen. And so...
And Camille became this active citizen by creating an association called Most Mirror, and I immediately took a liking to its translation.
Most Mirror means a bridge of peace in English. You know, if you want to build peace, you have to build the bridges first. So I think most people in this community like what Most Mirror does. The first idea for some kind of center was born in 2005, you know, building a place. And we also had young people who wanted us to be present in this community all year round. So basically, the Peace Center will also serve as a bridge between different communities. And the location is quite symbolic because this was the first house to be destroyed in the village. It's located across the field where I and other villagers were rounded up in May 1992, and before the first people were taken and tortured inside the school. There's a lot of symbolism because we are building something new from the ruins of the past, something better. So basically, if you want to rebuild this community, to build peace, it has to begin with small acts, very often small acts of kindness. It's not about big things. It's not about politicians, it's not about the United Nations. It's about the people about whose lives this is. If you don't involve them, it doesn't count. Soon I'm going to become a father. I want to do it to teach him to to be a good human being, not to hate those who did to me what they did to me.
As I leave Bosnia, the first stop on my journey, I am left with the certainty that being a victim is not inevitable. If after all the horrors, we are still able to reach out to others, then anything is possible. Nujema, through her resilience, and Camille, who leverages the power of forgiveness, both decided to re-evaluate life and become the resistance fighters that Benoît Choer spoke of. They offer concrete alternatives to reweaving bonds while fighting against that fear of the other. Through their projects, through their encounters, hundreds of people are tracing the outline of a new Bosnia where they are open to one another. This first step leaves me energized, and I wonder if we really could create a universally inclusive world, not just in Bosnia, but everywhere. Amin Maalouf has written with such foresight about these social disturbances and identity crises. So I decide to meet with him and ask for help in identifying the challenges we face.
First of all, I truly believe that universal values exist. I don't believe for a moment that certain values are only valid for certain populations and certain civilizations, and other values only work for other civilizations. But there are fundamental elements that cannot be compromised. Firstly, all human beings, men and women, are born free. In other words, it's up to them to decide their own lives. Their lives are not the property of any king, any community, any religious group, or any nation. All human beings are free. That's a fundamental value. All humans have the right to respect for their proper dignity. Having their own aspirations and dreams, having their own views on the world, and an understanding of history. These things are irreplaceable. There's a whole series of fundamental things on which we cannot compromise. It's not a question of knowing whether we can or can't live together. Rather, how can we live together? We don't have a choice. We have to live together. We won't be having a clear out within our countries or within our cities. We will continue to live together. The world isn't going to deglobalize. We can't move backwards. But we must change the way we think about the world. We need to recreate a harmonious world. A world that works properly. A world where everyone has their place and their dignity so that everyone can benefit rather than have everyone lose.
Since the challenge in a globalized world is clearly dignity, it makes sense that the second stop on my journey should lead me to meet these women and men who are fighting to create societies where this value serves as a pillar. How do they do it? I traveled to Lebanon, where human dignity is being put to the test by the massive migration of refugees to this tiny territory. The figures are staggering. In recent years, this country has received more than twice as many refugees as all the countries of Europe combined. Put simply, in Lebanon, 1/3 of the population are refugees. No other country in the world faces an economic and social burden of this size. Today, the vast majority of Lebanese people are vigorously expressing how fed up they are with this disruption of their way of life.
In a certain way, it's an invasion. Their way of thinking and living, lots of things set us apart. With work, they undercut the Lebanese in certain jobs, like restaurants and businesses. They've become a burden to Lebanon. We can't deal with them anymore. Perhaps it's time for them to go home. It's about time.
Against this tense backdrop, I meet with Dr. Jamal, an extraordinary resistance fighter who works at the Kefraya camp in the center of the Bekaa Valley. Despite strong opposition, Dr. Jamal refuses to give in to isolationism and fear by welcoming and caring for the Syrians driven from their homes by the war. And his openness to others goes even further. In a country where one's confession is paramount, this doctor, a Shia by faith, treats Sunni Syrian refugees while working for a Christian organization. This is truly unique in Lebanon.
He has headaches every day. I've already taken him to see a doctor.
Your son is suffering from migraines.
Irritated eyes, fever, and a cough.
Conjunctivitis. Stick out your tongue. There, that's it.
I grew up in a village far away from the city, in a very poor family. My father worked all day long, and I really felt this injustice. I've remained very close to the poor, and this experience drove me to live among them.
It's because of her teeth. She has a throat inflammation. I'll give you medicine for the fever. The Lebanese view the Syrians from a political standpoint. Some Lebanese support the Syrian regime. But in spite of this, I help any Syrian who needs treatment. The Lebanese only focus on the political issue, but not on the humanitarian work. People in pain, Syrians, Palestinians, Lebanese, Christians, Muslims, it makes no difference. They're patients. They're human beings. End of story. Today we'll be visiting camps 009, 010 and 040. These are 3 large-scale camps. Since I started working with these refugees, I built a relationship of trust with them. The patients openly share their problems with me. I often see female patients with black eyes and bruises. They tell me their husbands have been beating them. I keep things light, to put them at ease. I advise them, don't share a bed with him. They'll say, you want him to beat me again? I don't get frustrated, because I understand that living conditions are very tough in the tents. They're doing the best they can.
He has allergies. I bought him this cream, but that didn't work.
You should have given him a pill. He has to take medication. You should have told me this. When she's 2 months old, bring her in for vaccination. I'll see you. I'll send you through right away. Even if there's a lot of people waiting. All right? Be seeing you.
When the children are sick, Dr. Jamal's mobile medical unit comes in to care for them. We all feel reassured. He gives the children medication and he examines the pregnant women. He really cares about people. That's why he does what he does.
Everything seems normal. I don't see any problems.
I've been told that it's a boy. He should be born in July. I hope he gets to grow up and God gives him a good life. I want to give him a home and a good education so that he can grow up to be a teacher or a lawyer. I want him to be happy.
These children often remind me of my own childhood, even though the conditions were different. At least we had a home. But when I see their noses, their mouths, eyes and ears, it's all the same. It doesn't matter if they're Shiite, Sunni, Druze or Christian. As far as I'm concerned, they're human beings. Every person is free. There are 7 billion of us on Earth. There are 7 billion ways for us to believe in God. I put myself in the service of others. And I do this as humanely as possible. Let me show you a photo.
I took that photo.
Oh yeah? Oh, you did? I want to keep working until the very end of my life. I can't just stay home and do nothing. That's impossible. We gave you this box, and you switched it. You need to take either this box or that one. No, we're done for the day now. Okay.
I shadowed Dr. Jamal for several days in the Kafrea camp, and what struck me was the commitment he puts into seeing in each of his patients a person without labels, either denominational or national. His position is clear. They are patients, they are brothers. His words and actions restore human dignity to these refugees.
And the love written on your face was so discreet, it made my heart skip a beat. And the melody of falling was so sweet, so sweet. And the love written on your face was so discreet, you made my heart skip a beat.
Coming back to Beirut, I realized how amazing Lebanon, and especially the Lebanese, truly are. While Dr. Jamal has chosen to fight for the most underprivileged wearing his white coat, Leah has chosen to fight her battle in a pair of branded sneakers and fashionable threads. Leah is a young Christian woman belonging to the Beirut elite. After studying at the best schools, she began a career as a consultant for a large corporation. This comfortable life followed a path that had always been set out for her. But one day, she decided to leave her comfort zone. She moved to Tripoli, a completely different world, 130 kilometers north of Beirut, to carry out an ambitious reconstruction project. What pushed her to choose this chaotic lifestyle?
I like things that are different, challenges, different people, and the feeling of accomplishment.
At first, I was scared for her. I thought, why Tripoli? What are you going to do there? With people of a different faith, even though the war is over and all of that is behind us, the after effects of the war are still quite entrenched.
You only need to travel from Beirut to Tripoli to see that Lebanon is a country fragmented into denominational pockets that see each other as opponents without anyone being able to fully understand why. I am told about the war which until recently divided these two poor working-class neighborhoods, the Sunni Bab el-Tebene and the Alawite Jabal Musen. What immediately became clear is that these two districts clashed with Kalashnikovs and mortars, causing thousands of deaths. Children have reconquered the Rue de Syrie that used to be the dividing line between the two neighborhoods.
We didn't know anything. We thought it was a war between faiths, but we learned afterwards that it was just a political game. They sparked the war in Tripoli. They knew this was a poor region.
I thought they were just drug addicts who we needed to get rid of. I would never have imagined getting to know someone from Jabal. We wanted to get rid of them. We didn't want them here. That's what I thought.
It is on this street that Leah has established her NGO March, which aims to rebuild small shops and offer vocational training to these young people.
She came to Tripoli 3 months after the ceasefire, and we were able to bring about a big change. We completed projects in Bab el-Dahab, and we're now starting a 5th project. We're renovating the Syria and Jabal Moshen districts.
Ah, Yusef's hard at work. Everything all right, Yusef? Why are these posts all rusty?
These posts are unfinished. I'll paint them after.
The others are a little rusty.
We need to coil the wires with Shadi.
Okay. When I first went to Bab el-Tabene, I thought, how do these people live? It's like a different world here. All these narrow streets that have been hit by RPGs and other weapons I had never heard of. Everyone was hostile towards me. Everyone was thinking, why is this outsider coming here? And when I saw all this, I thought, no, I need to be here. This place needs art, culture, and hope. Shrine will paint this staircase. Is he going to paint the whole staircase? Where are you going to put the plants? We'll have to pull down this wall.
Yeah, this wall has become unstable.
You could decorate the other wall with a nice mural or something?
Leah has an energy about her. She has fire in her belly. She always needs to be taking action. She went to the demarcation line. She met guys from Jebel Mosen and Bebel Tabane, fighters who were killing each other. And she decided that art needed to come back and that it needed to win out.
We were looking for a chance to chase the hate from our hearts, to put down our guns, and we jumped at this chance. I was 16 years old. I was shooting my gun in the streets. We managed to create a center where youths from Jabal Mosen and Bab el-Tabene could meet up. This is the only place where we could meet. Before, the only place where these youths met was in prison.
What March is trying to do via the cafes and rebuilding projects is to offer an alternative to these young people. A third community that they can be proud of and belong to. And the hope, the goal is a better future, together. And so, looking beyond all the identity-based sectarian issues they've experienced for so long, they find it comforting to have this sense of belonging.
We were asked if we wanted to follow a graphic design course as part of Leah Baroudi's March Association. At the start, I found it a little scary. I was wondering why this woman from Beirut had come here to help us. I feel proud when I walk through the district that March has renovated. Makes me feel so happy. It's important to take pride in this.
They've created job opportunities for the younger generations. They didn't discriminate between Sunni, Alawites or Christians. They saw that Tripoli had been infected by a contagious disease. They didn't kill it outright. They treated it step by step.
I think that when you believe in something, you can succeed. Because belief is contagious. It had become a challenge for me, because everyone said, no, it won't work. You'll get yourself killed. It will never work. Those people have been stuck in their ways for 50, 60 years. That's always the problem with others. You assume what they think of you instead of considering what you really think about them.
Not only are they transforming buildings, they're also transforming people. Every young person who works with us comes from one of the neighborhoods. Each one has their way of thinking and their own prejudices. They meet here and they learn how to write or speak English. We're doing great work.
Work has brought us together, and we promote unity through work.
People ask me, how are you able to work with people who once carried guns and perhaps even killed people? I say, I don't judge. People can do lots of things, depending on the circumstances. We're only human. And it's by humanizing the problem, by talking about the people I work with who have names, faces, their own lives, with whom we've managed to accomplish all this. We do this because these exchanges are important. They make a difference. And I think this is the solution. It's just so simple. But at the same time, it's also very hard, so...
Give me my freedom. Give me myself back. Give me my soul. Give me my heart. Give me my freedom.
Leah's solution appears so simple, to humanize the other by giving them a name and a face, rather than going on pigeonholing them with community or religious labels. As Amin Maalouf put it so well, if our own views often lock others into their affiliations, then our views can also liberate them.
I was a little girl trying to do her best. I was a little girl trying to find a nest, looking for a home, looking for a break from the mess you made.
We see, across the globe, these resistance fighters, because they have beliefs, because they undoubtedly have a strong system of values. They can try, via cultural contagion, to promote certain ideas. I think out of all these values that they've undoubtedly acquired through familial transmissions, school networks and so on, through books or films, they've learned the cardinal value of universally respecting a person's right to dignity. They have this value etched into their very bones. And this value means that they no longer objectify or dehumanize an individual.
Give me my freedom. Give me myself back. Give me my soul. Give me my heart. Give me my freedom. Give me whatever you took from me there.
But can we speed this process up? How can we accelerate the cultural contagion that Benoit Choer talks about? How can this emerging movement win the fight against fear?
We're facing extremely important challenges. We're living through a fascinating period of history, which is also extremely complex and extremely troubling. In the future, we need to facilitate ways of bringing people together beyond their group associations. Group associations which are often imposed, which are often felt as constraints. And people are often glad to escape these constraints and find something else. I believe this deeper knowledge is indispensable nowadays. There's a lot of ground to cover.
What emerges from the words of Amin Maalouf is a fundamental question for the future of our society. How, in practice, do we teach otherness? The United States, a country built upon religious and cultural diversity, is the ideal place to go and observe our future. I land in New York, a melting pot of cultures, languages, and beliefs, where everything is always moving faster than anywhere else, where meeting the other is a daily reality. dozen kilometers from this megalopolis, I head to Brookville campus, known for its innovative teachings led by 3 religious leaders.
Hayya salah, hayya ala salah, hayya al falah, hayya ala falah.
What we are doing at Brookville Church is the most radical thing that any Reformed church in America is doing. So please stand if you are able.
Om Shalom, Om Shalom.
We had a very unique opportunity to build bridges between 3 major religions, Islam, Christianity, and Judaism. So I started introducing the faith leaders to each other, and very quickly we discovered that we had the exact same passion for building reform in our respective faith traditions.
When she first came to her parish in 2012, Reverend Vicky learned that the church rented part of its buildings to a synagogue and to a Quran study group. She saw this as an opportunity to build bridges between Christianity, Judaism, and Islam. Driven by that same passion to learn from others, this meeting between religious leaders turned into friendship, and it was alongside them that Vicky developed a vision.
So Vicky's vision was to have a campus. That she manifested. I never would have imagined studying a surah and speaking as I have. I never would have imagined looking for Judaism and Christianity, looking for Christianity and Judaism, which is what I do now as I study.
When I first met Dr. Sultan, he gave me a copy of his book, which is basically a commentary on the Quran. And the first chapter I read, I began to cry because the words that he wrote were the exact same words that I have said about my own faith.
There is so much common in the Muslim teaching and the Jewish teaching and the Christian teaching. And so for the world to become better, we have to choose this perspective instead of thinking about what is different from between us.
And through those relationships, my understanding of Judaism and Islam went from basically 0 to learning a great deal. Let us strive to live a life where we are gracious and merciful to others.
Let us build a house where prophets speak and words are strong.
We all put the names of our faith communities on the sign as a statement to say that this is our permanent home. We're very clear in the fact that we are not blending the religions. Every prayer group, every Bible study, every Quran study, every worship service, every Shabbat service, every prayer service is open to any faith. I started discovering that congregants and colleagues didn't support what we were doing, didn't understand what we were doing, were misconstruing what we were doing.
Some people turned against me. They said, it's too much reform, we don't want it. Yeah.
There are rabbis rabbis call me all the time. Now, for years, they would call me and say, how can you do what you do? The people who are rooted in, this is our church, this is our way, we don't want anything new here.
It became, for a while, a very isolating experience for me. I started questioning some of my own beliefs. But I do feel that we are ambassadors to the community and maybe even to the world, that what we are doing is possible because it's happening, we're doing it.
So am I a rebel? I don't see myself as a rebel. I see myself as having made a choice and making a choice every day to choose life and choose love. Does that make me a rebel? To some people who disagree with me, it probably does. And good for them.
We're more alike than we are different. I think that fear comes from ignorance. I challenge you to step out of that fear just by meeting somebody who is different from you. Go find someone who is a different religion, a different ethnicity, nationality. Introduce yourself. Get to know them. Find out what makes their heart beat, what they're passionate about. I think that if you will take that step, as fearful as it may be, it will change your world. It will change your whole perspective. It will open up a whole new world to you. And I think you'll be much happier in your life.
In Brookville, Reverend Vicky welcomes new parishioners every week. Couples from mixed faith backgrounds who find a place to learn on campus. It might be a Christian with a Jew, a Muslim, an atheist, a Hindu, an agnostic. In short, any combination seems possible. Yet the most improbable one I discovered was in Florida with Rory and Arif's family.
1, 2, 3. Happy birthday to you. It's right under the vent. Happy birthday, dear Mia. Happy birthday to you.
So Arif and I actually met online, which is always kind of funny, I feel like, because you never know kind of who are you meeting at that time. And our first time that we actually met in person, that was the first time we learned that I was Jewish and he was Muslim, that we learned of each other, what our backgrounds were.
When I first met her parents, all I can picture her father was coming down with the yarmulke, with the curls, like an Hasidic Jew. Even though she told me he's a regular guy, that's all I could picture in my head for whatever reason.
So he actually made a joke, oh, you're Jewish, I'm Muslim, this isn't gonna work out, ha 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 ha. And years later, we're happily married with 2 children.
Mazel tov.
Hold it, doing great.
Give each other a kiss, please.
Beautiful.
You know, when people are courting and everything is rosy and nice, it's when you start living together, then things change, you know. Muslims don't wear shoes in the house, and simply because we pray on the floor, right? We spread a sheet on the floor and we pray. So now, I have to tell Rory, you can't wear shoes in the house, you know what I mean? You know, you have, this thing calls for adaptation, you have to adapt. And
my biggest fear, kids. When we have our kids, what's gonna happen?
I mean, I think the clash was really like, can we raise them Muslim as opposed to raising them Jewish? It was, for me, it was an internal struggle. Could I go through with this? Could I just raise them Muslim and not raise them Jewish? And I could just be the only Jewish one in the family. What would that feel like? And I couldn't do that. That felt very uncomfortable for me because Judaism is part of my culture. And we had to definitely have conversations about that.
One of the things that the therapist told us to do is really take a look at your religions, right? And take a look at yourselves and just try to find out the similarities. A lot of the times when we're looking at individuals, the things that we're looking for, the things that we're looking at are differences. And those differences tend to make us very scared. However, when we start to look at those similarities, we're like, wait a minute, we have a lot more similarities then we have differences. You know, we're not eating pork, they're eating kosher, we're eating halal. When I started to look at the picture in that sense, that's when the light bulb kind of went off for me. I'm like, you know what? Maybe there's actually a chance here.
And so that's how we decided together that we were going to raise them in both religions. So our decision to raise our kids both means that we don't have to choose between Judaism or Islam. They're able to do both.
Hayal salah, hayal salah, hayal falah, hayal falah. Kartamat ya salah, kartamat ya salah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lechem min haaretz.
With our kids, if you ask them, you know, what are you? A lot of times people may say, I'm 50% of this and 50% of that. But one of the things that Rory kind of reinforces is that no, you're 100% Muslim, you're 100% West Indian, you're 100% Guyanese, you're 100% Jewish, you're 100% Ashkenazi Jew, or whatever the case is.
When we go to synagogue or when we go to the mosque, we go as a family, we go together. To celebrate Ramadan and celebrate Eid, we do as a family. We'll do Shabbat. When we do Shabbat, we do it as a family, everybody's together. At night, we do a bedtime prayer, and it incorporates a Jewish prayer and a Muslim prayer. So they're exposed to a lot of people on both sides from those backgrounds.
When I get up in the morning, the first thing I would say, Assalamu alaikum. And now I'm seeing Rory now, and I'm saying, uh-oh, do I say good morning? And you know what? Sometimes she answers back. Sometimes she says, wa alaikum assalam. And I say, oh, that's nice. Right?
Mia. Yeah, it's your Mia.
I think that my kids will be put in situations where people will want them to make a choice with being Jewish or being Muslim. And I'm hoping that we do a good enough job to teach them that they don't have to do that and that they don't have to put themselves in a box. And that they're able to say, I'm not one, I'm both. I am Jewish and I am Muslim.
Yellow brown, Mom says. Just like creamy peanut butter. I say, my favorite. Do you like peanut butter?
Today, more than 20% of children in the US are born into mixed-faith households. Susan Cath Miller, author of the book Being Both, helps me to understand the impact of this phenomenon on future generations.
So in a family like Rory and Arif's, you have a child who is growing up knowing that they are both. And often it's hard for the parents to understand this, for people on the outside looking in to understand how a child can feel both. Because for those of us who were raised with one religion, it doesn't compute. And it feels like there's a theological barrier to doing this, that there is a cognitive dissonance. The fact is, children grow up, and whatever their environment is natural for them. And so it feels very natural for those of us who grow up with two religions to feel that we are both. If you raise your children to believe that they are going to be bridge builders in the world, then they take on that role with pride, and you become a peace ambassador. You become part of a world that is going to resist religious violence. It's going to force people to realize that if you can have peace between two partners, if you can have peace in a family that includes more than one religion, if you can have peace in a community that includes more than one religion, then maybe we can have peace in a world that contains many religions.
Susan stimulates my curiosity. Can this openness to others go beyond the family sphere and become an educational tool for schools? Next stop, Indonesia. The fourth most populous nation on Earth is a real patchwork. It has 700 living languages, 1,110 ethnic groups, 6 officially recognized religions, and a national motto that speaks volumes about the desire to remain united. Bhinneka Tunggal Ika, which translates to unity in diversity. However, in the Moluccas archipelago, just east of Indonesia, this unity was undermined. At the beginning of this century, and for several years, a deadly conflict broke out between the Muslim and Christian communities of the archipelago.
The conflict caused a geographical separation. People were segregated according to their religion. Muslims went to Muslim regions, Christians went to Christian regions. Face-to-face meetings are becoming increasingly important.
Jackie is one of the main peacemakers in the archipelago, and I wanted to see how, despite the segregation that still existed, he had managed to allow the younger generations, separated by the conflict, to get to know each other and create unique friendships thanks to the support of their teachers and schools.
I'm 13 years old, and I go to the SMP Negeri 9 Ambon school. If I can get good grades in science, I'll be able to become a doctor. This will help fulfill my dream. There aren't any Muslims among the people here, my neighbors. I live in a Christian community.
My mother never talks about the conflicts of the past. She's never spoken about it. Perhaps she's still traumatized. That's because we rarely come into contact with Christians. We keep to ourselves. Their way of thinking is the same as during the conflict. They can't forget it. So many people still think that Muslims and Christians are evil. It'd be better if Christians could attend my school. We'd learn to respect each other. We could complement one another.
Jangan mahal ke kamera. Assalamualaikum.
Peace be upon you.
Anak-anak sekalian,
Children, there are currently unacceptable events taking place regarding the way in which we should behave with our friends.
kepada teman-teman kita,
Some of you have neighbors who follow a different faith. You should love them. And why is that? According to Islamic law, you must respect your neighbors and share your meals with them.
konflik di Ambon itu sangat traumanya sangat
The Ambon conflict is the source of a great many traumas. They're still present, both in Muslim and Christian communities. They're still present. I say this because certain people are holding on to their suspicions. When a child goes to a Christian area, the child is told to be careful. And we're trying to break down barriers. We're taking it step by step, but we hope to eradicate this. The main goal is to eliminate the barriers between students and to spread peace, starting with the schools. It's very effective to start with the schools. There we can teach peace to the new generations, whose hearts and minds are still fresh and pure. Now these children talk to their parents. They become ambassadors for all the inhabitants of Maluku. The students pass on this message to their parents. As you all know, we experienced the conflict here, an enormous conflict that destroyed us. but we rose back up again. Why was that? Firstly, because the people of Ambon love each other. In the book, this is called the Pela Gandong. The Pela Gandong was created by our ancestors so that we can all love each other.
The Pela is a pact between two villages, two traditional villages based on specific events. The Pela was created in order to promote fellowship between schools. The relationships of the past, the relationships of our ancestors, are returning to the modern day. This means that the local culture is being used as a tool to establish peace.
Of Maluku. Don't let your egos lead us into conflicts which we don't even understand. Let us be united in diversity, in accordance with the creed, unity in diversity. May peace and love be with you.
The eating of betel leaves and nuts symbolizes the strength of the Pela. These are the traditional ways which serve to unite us.
In Ambon, it's a strange thing for Muslims and Christians to mix. We now do many things together. We have many students spread out all over the local area. I want to bring them all to a single place where they can cook, eat, and play together. Let's not limit ourselves to merely teaching the facts. We must teach morals and love for each other. This is what motivated me to build peace at the school.
We have shown through various activities how these people, through meeting each other, are learning to trust one another, so that they can now become friends.
We should dance together one day. We'll dance together, film it, then post the video online.
The first time I met Miska, my negative feelings towards her community vanished. I'm happy that the Panas Pela event allowed me to meet people from a different religion.
I don't really know how Christians pray. I want to know the differences between Muslims and Christians. This will allow me to better understand and explain this to other Muslims. Do you only pray on Sundays? Or do you pray on other days too?
At my church, the weekly Mass takes place on Sundays. And it is our custom to greet each other by saying Shalom. In your religion, you usually say Salam Alaikum, whereas we usually say Shalom.
Are they singing?
Yes, and there's the pastor. He'll preside over the service.
Semua yang siap untuk memuji Tuhan katakan amin.
There was a woman next to me who was singing normally, but there was also this very funny man. He was singing, shaking, and dancing like crazy. I'm trying to understand that this place is God's house, and this is how they pray here.
If I became president, I would say that Indonesia is facing a difficult problem. But I would promote peace, for example, by organizing a panas pela for the whole of Indonesia.
Ella and I now speak in terms of us. We are pacifists who are fighting for peace. That's why we now have this obligation to be together. In Ambon, we use the word ketong, which means we together. First of all, there are 13 steps to the prayer. Step 1, you stand up straight. And, like a church, you respond with Amen.
To me, friendship represents one of the main pillars of interfaith relations, of dialogue between religions and ethnicities.
In this archipelago, 15,000 kilometers from my home, lessons based on knowledge of the other are given priority in school programs. Here, the teachers have understood, as Amin Malouf says, that in this century, there is no more crucial goal than knowing the other. One by one, the puzzle pieces of an inclusive world are falling into place. I have a better grasp of the ingredients needed for people to come together.
A world where we respect human diversity a bit more each day, where people can express themselves in whatever language they like, peacefully professing their beliefs and solemnly accepting their origins without creating hostility or denigration. This is a world that advances, makes progress, and rises up.
In Africa, the cradle of humanity, one country stands out as an example in resisting ethnic and religious conflicts: Senegal. It is in this country, and in particular in the small village of Palmarin, that I discover the existence of a dignified and harmonious world.
My name is David. I live in Palmarin. I buy and sell fish with the boats. Here, we are farmers, fishermen, shepherds. Here we keep cows. We raise them. Here in Palmarin, we're a community, a tight-knit community. If you hurt David, you're hurting Ibrahim or Mamadou. There's no way to tell the Christians and Muslims apart.
I might have a Muslim friend, so when it comes to naming my son, I might name him after my father, who is Christian, and after my Muslim friend. So you might find a Pierre Mustafa in Palmarin.
On Sundays, the Christians go to church. On Fridays, the Muslims go to the mosque. Then we all come home to share a meal together.
Let me say something important. During the Easter celebrations, the Catholics do not prepare pork. Why don't Catholics prepare pork on those days? They share meals with Muslims, and Muslims don't eat pork. They cook chicken because Muslims don't eat pork. This is very important. With families, one half may be Muslim, and the other half may be Catholic. That's why we get along well. One side of the family could be Catholic, and the other side could be Muslim. And this works really well. Everyone is like family here.
We went to school together, we grew up together. We shared many things together, like wrestling sessions, all of that.
It's no problem. We're all the same. No problem.
If you reject foreigners, there won't be any development. If you do this, there'll be less development. Let them come in. Don't reject the incoming foreigners. Welcome them. That's the important thing. And we have a mixed cemetery. The mixed cemetery outside of town. Muslims and Christians are mixed together. Our ancestors did this. Our ancestors did this, so we respect the tradition. Our ancestors left us this. You have to respect this tradition. Our ancestors said, you must live as a community.
What's his name? His Eminence Theodore Adrian Sar.
He's able to speak with the Pope. He should tell him that Palmarin should become the home of Islamo-Christian dialogue.
Muslims sometimes will go out and date a Christian, and Christians will even date a Muslim. Perhaps they can have how can I put it? They can marry. Yes, they can even marry.
I was only meant to stay a few days in Palmarin, but I ended up staying for several weeks. I watched and listened. Every day, I was surprised to see the natural ease with which the villagers succeed in creating a world that is open to all.
The message I give to Europeans is, you must always live in friendship. Don't live alone. Live as a community.
Respect human dignity, dialogue, interfaith worship, friendship, tradition, marriage, home and school education, welcoming strangers, curiosity. Everything is in place so that fear of the other cannot arise. This village has understood how to fully value diversity as a source of wealth.
God is here, Christianity is here, and Islam is here. We have the same sides, which are both equal. So we should live together, live in peace, and be worthy of it.
This is how we live in Palmarin. We live as a community. Here, we're all living together. We all live together. It's as simple as that.
If we can live together, then so can you. We've been following your way of life. Now it's your turn to follow ours. I believe deeply in the following things. Each and every one of us has multiple groups we belong to. But there is one group which is the most important. We are all human beings who are setting out on planet Earth at a certain point in history on the human adventure. The fact is, there were one of 7.5 billion humans living at the very start of the 21st century. And I hope that in the future, this will be taken into consideration.
After 2 years of traveling our globe, I see the reality of the human spirit and return home feeling appeased. Of course, it will take time, tenacity, and a good deal of persistence to overcome our prejudices and our fears. But I have seen that it is possible. There is no need for fatalism. Our destiny is in our hands. By taking the decision to look forward, to humanize the other, to learn from them, to teach unity and diversity, we can go beyond the simple fact of living together. We can come together.
about all of us.
I crossed paths with hundreds of women and men who took the chance to rally others, to reassure them, to listen, to include, to share, to reunite, to adopt, to pacify, to reconcile, and quite simply to get to know each other. And there are plenty of opportunities to take the first step. These citizens act as bridges, fierce mediators between communities, and their impact is colossal. No matter their level of education, their social class, their age, or their gender, these ambassadors have understood that the time has come to shake up our habits and to seriously listen to each other. We are facing a movement which across all four corners of our planet is growing. This movement is based on knowing the other at all costs. And the good news is that we can all take part in it. All together, all of us.
'Cause it's about you, it's about me, it's about all of us, it's about all of us. Da 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 da.
Walking through their land, pure souls and dreams ahead. Tell the world, here we are. Hey! 1,000 miles away, we've traveled to survive to play. We've put our fears aside. 1,000 miles away from home. Hey! We are the answers by the peace on every day. Tell them we are on the way. We won't stop, don't stop growing every day. Tell them we are on the way. Hey, we are the answers by the peace on every day. Tell them we are on the way. We're walking through the land, pure souls, dreams ahead, tell the world, here we are. Romantic adventure, we seek, discover what the world has to hide. 1,000 miles away, we've traveled to survive to play. We've put our fears aside. 1,000 miles away, we've traveled to survive to play. We've come to sing out loud. 1,000 miles away from home. Hey, we are the answers by the peace on every day. Tell them we are on the way. We won't stop, don't stop growing every day. Tell them we are